Hey guys, Aria here on my Templar. I'm going to go over my PvP build that I mainly run in Cyrodiil on my Templar, and then I'm also going to show how you can use this build for PvE DPS as well. So let me go right into the build. So first up, I will go over my attributes and my buffs. For my attributes, I'm pretty much running almost a 50-50 split between health and stamina. This works really good for me, but if you want to run a little bit more tanky build, obviously go more into health. More stamina is going to give you more of a DPS build, but this is what works for me. For buffs, for the Mundus Stone, I run the Warrior. For the weapon damage and more DPS. I am a Vampire. I like Vampire for PvP. Because as you'll see when I get into my skills, I really like the skills that it gives. You could also run Werewolf. I have run Werewolf with this build. It works really well as well. So if you find that you're feeling a little squishy with the fire damage, with vampirism, then you can also run Werewolf. And then I do run the primary stat buff food. For if you're looking at my stats here, you'll see that I put a lot of emphasis on weapon damage. That's going to make you hit harder, more DPS. I do have pretty good crit here. That's going to play more into DPS on the PvE side of this build. So that's pretty good there. And then I do have very high stamina recovery. Stamina recovery is really important for PvP because as well as using your skills and your DPS, your stamina for that, you're also going to be roll dodging and blocking, and that's also using stamina. So being able to recover your stamina quickly and being able to keep that block up, keep dodge rolling is very, very important. So having good stamina recovery is important to build. I do take a little bit of a hit on my health recovery, mainly because I'm a vampire. That's not a big deal. You have a lot of shields on this build, and you do have hots, so you are going to be able to recover that health other ways. Magicka on this build, you're not going to use it a whole lot. Not as important to have high Magicka or your Magicka pool here. So next up, I will go over my gear. For gear, I'm running 5 pieces of Hunting's Rage. I'm running the chest, the belts, boots, hands, and then my 2 weapons are as Hunting's Rage. Hunting's Rage is a crafted set, so it's really easy to get. You can have someone craft it for you, or you can craft it yourself. It gives you really good weapon damage for the 5-piece. It also gives you crit and stamina, which is also really good. So it's a good 5-piece set to get. For my next set, I'm running 4 pieces of Shadow Walker. Shadow Walker is a little bit harder set to get. You can buy the chests from the PvP vendors, and it's a random drop there, or you can buy it. It's kind of expensive, so I kind of cheated on the jewelry. I went with the Vet 12. It was a little bit cheaper, so you can do that if you want to save some money. For the jewelry, I run weapon damage. Mainly just so I can hit harder. If you find you are running through a lot of stamina, you could run reduced stamina cost in jewelry. You don't have to run it on all 3, you could if you want, but if you just want to run it on 1 or 2 pieces, you could do that. And then my weapons, I run flame damage on my bow. Mainly, there are a lot of vampires in PvP, so having a little bit of flame damage is good. It's also a really good dot. So that's why I run flame damage. Weighted is kind of how I get regen my stam. Weighted gives you a faster attack speed, so you are able to get those heavy attacks back faster and regen that stamina. So that's why I run that on my bow. For a greatsword, I run crushing and sharpened. Crushing is really good in PvP. It's going to help break through some of those heavier tanky builds armor, so you can get in that damage. Sharpened armor spell pen, also really good for PvP. You could also run Nirnholm here. Nernhund would be a little bit more expensive to do, but it is also an option if you can do it. Then my last set here, the Engine Guardian set. This is a really good set. It drops from doing your dailies. You get the shoulders from the chest, and then the helmet comes from Darkshade Caverns veteran rank. This set, it spawns a little Engine Guardian, and he gives you back health, stamina, or magicka. This set is also really good for this build because as a Templar, when that Engine Guardian dies, you can actually pull resources from him as well. So it works really well with this build. For my enchants on my gear, I'm running Infused on my chest and my belt, and I got lucky on the shoulders. I got Infused on that drop, so that was good. And then Divines on my boots and my gloves, and then Impenetrable on my helmet. I am running 5 pieces of medium. That is for, if you go under armor, you get a weapon buff for having 5 pieces of medium, so that's why I'm running 5 pieces there. I run 2 pieces of heavy for unstoppable, just so it can stay up longer. If you happen to get a piece of light armor with the Engine Guardian set, you could also get this buff here. My current bonus is 4. If you have a piece of light, a piece of medium, and a piece of heavy, this could be buffed up to 6. So you can get some more out of your base stats if you have one of each armor type. That is also an option if you do that. So now moving on to my skills. For weapons, you saw that I'm running a bow and a greatsword. First up, I will go over my bow bar. My bow bar in PvP is kind of my survivability bar. It has a little bit of damage, but I mainly use it to get out of combat, heal myself up, CC the target. So my first spell here, this is actually my 1 damage dealing spell on this bar, Lethal Arrow. It has a really far range. It puts Major Defile on the target, which reduces healing on them, so that's really good. So it's really good for PvP. So that is my 1 damage dealing spell I have on this bar. My second spell here, Biting Javelin, it also does damage, but I don't really use it just for the damage. It's mainly for CC. This spell is going to knock the player back, and then it's also going to knock them down. So it's really good for CCing someone. It will not work if they're blocking, and it will not work if they have something like Unstoppable up. So it can be kind of tricky to time right, but if you time it right and you catch them off guard, it's really good for CCing a target. It does have a pretty good damage, almost 3k damage, so it does do some good damage too. This can be my flex spot. I do also run in that spot. I do also run Magnum Shot. Magnum Shot doesn't have the knockdown, but it does give you a bigger knockback. So it's going to knock the target back 6 meters, and then it's also going to knock you back 6 meters. So it's going to give you a really good 12-meter gap, so it's also really good. It also does a lot more damage than the Biting Jab, so if you find that you're lacking on the damage side, then you might want to try Magnum Shot, because it's at 3,800, so that's a lot more damage than the Biting Jab. My third skill here, Elusive Mist. This is one of the reasons why I run Vampire. Elusive Mist is great for getting out of combat or getting away from a Zerg. If you get jumped by 5 or 6 people, you can pop Unstoppable, pop your Elusive Mist, and usually get out of there and back into stealth. I did the elusive mist other than the one that does damage, mainly because I want to be, if I'm getting out of combat, I want to be able to move fast. So elusive mist gives you a 40% speed movement increase, so you can get out of combat. My fourth spell here, this is one of my magica skills. If you're running PvP, I really think it's important to have some kind of purify on your bar, whether it be under, you know, the Alliance War. You can run, you know, Purge there. I obviously don't run Purge. I run, you know, the Purifying Ritual. But you could run Purge as well. Purifying Ritual is really great if you have a Templar. It gives you a hot. It's not a huge hot, but it does give you a hot. And then it's going to cleanse 5 effects on you, which is great. It also, people around you, they're going to be able to use it as well and purge themselves. So it's a really good skill to have on your bar. My fifth skill here, Unstoppable. Obviously, I'm running it for the armor and the spell resistance. Also, it's going to give you immunity to knockback and disabling effects. So that is also really good. So it's going to stop someone from using like a biting javelin to knock you down. So it's really good for PvP. My ultimate on this bar, Clouding Swarm. This also another reason why Vampire is really good. This one, it's going to give you invisibility, and then it's also going to give you a pretty good AoE. It's not a huge amount of damage because I am not a Magicka based build, but it gives that invisibility, can kind of catch people off guard a lot of times. So it's really good. Jump into a Zerg, pop this, you know, kind of make them break up and scatter. So that's what I run on my bow bar. Then moving on to my greatsword, my 2-hand bar. For my first spell here, this is kind of my flex spot here on this weapon. Usually I run Executioner. This is a really great finishing move. It does a lot of damage once the player gets low health, so it's really good at finishing off a target. You can also run Brawler on that bar. If I run with the guild, we're doing a lot of Zerg, going up against a lot of Zergs, I will run Brawler because it's a really good AoE. It's also good for capturing flags using on NPCs, so you can use it that way as well. Like I said, it's a good AoE. It puts a dot on the targets. It also puts a shield on you, so it gives you another shield. So when you are fighting a lot of multiple players, you can have this shield, you can have your blazing shield, you can have Unstoppable up. So that's 3 shields on you. So it makes you really tanky. Even though you're not running heavy armor, it makes you kind of a tanky class. So that's another option for your first slot here. The other one you could run here, you could run Wrecking Blow as well. I find it to be a little bit slow for PvP. I know a lot of people running in PvP, so you know, if it works for you, then use it. It does a lot of damage and it has a really good CC. But like I said, it's a little slow for me. I have a hard time landing it on targets because they're moving around a lot in PvP. So I don't always run it. But if it works for you, then it's a really good skill. The second skill on this bar, Critical Rush. This is my gap closer. It's really good for rushing in to combat. It's going to do more damage the further you are from the target. So you really do want to try to get as much distance as you can from the target before using it. Really good combo for this is to use either Biting Jab or, like I said earlier, Magnum Shot on this bar, and then go right into a critical charge. So you get that distance, and then you charge right in. So this is really probably my hardest hitting, other than Executioner when I get low health. But this is, you know, how I get them to that low health. Third spell here, this is the spell that is going to work with your Engine Guardian. So what this Repentance does is it pulls resources from corpses. So it also has, it's a really good buff to have on your bar. It's going to give you health, stamina, and magicka regen while it's on your bar here. So it's a really good, just always ticking away, giving you 10% regen. So that's really good. But when things die, you can, it doesn't cost anything. So you can actually pull health and stamina from the corpses around you. And this does work with the Engine Guardian. So even if you're in a 1v1 with someone and your Engine Guardian procs, you get the resources from your Engine Guardian, as well as when it dies you can pull resources from it. So it's really good for this Templar build. My fourth skill here, Rally. This is really good buff for any weapon damage build. It's going to give you Major Brutality, which is going to increase your weapon damage by 20%, which is really good. It also serves as your stamina-based heal in this build. So what it does is you put it on yourself. It's going to give you a hot while it's on you, and then if you hit it again before it falls off, it's going to give you a really big burst heal. So it's really good for PvP. What I will do is I'll put this on, I'll rush in, I'll have my shields up so I'm not going to be taking a huge amount of damage. I'll let it just run out for as long as it can, and then if my shields do happen to fall off, I take some spike damage. All I have to do is hit this again and I get a heal. So it's really good for PvP, so that's why I run that there. For my fifth skill here, Blazing Shield, one of my shields that I run, it does use magicka, so it is one of my other magicka based skills, but it's a really good skill to have. It gives you a shield. It's going to absorb damage equal to your max health. So at the beginning of the video I said if you want to be more tanky, you can put more points into health. So this is one of the reasons why it would make you more tanky. So the bigger health pool you have, the bigger shield you're going to have. So you could go that route if you want. It's going to do a little bit of AoE damage, which is nice. So when it falls off, it's going to do damage to the players around you. So this is a really good skill to have for PvP. My ultimate on this bar, I don't actually use Flawless Gunbreaker. I use it just for the weapon damage. It's going to give you 8% weapon damage buff, so it's great for your. This is kind of my damage dealing bar because I've got my two kind of big damage dealing spells here, so that's why I run it on my greatsword bar. So that's my greatsword. Okay, so next up I'm going to go over my champion points. There are a lot of options in the champion tree, so I'm going to show you what I put points into, but the champion tree is really open to, what you want to do. I would say you can either use this to buff your strengths, make you more powerful, or you can also use the champion tree to buff what you're weak in, so make you a little bit more balanced player. So let me go right into what I've done and where I put my points. So going into the warrior line. The warrior line is kind of your tanky points, make you absorb damage better, make you more tanky. So obviously spell resistance, really important, so I put 10 points into there. Reduce amount of critical hits, also very important, so I put 10 points into there. The steed has a couple of good, ultimate points here. I do have Invigorating Bash because I've got 10 points in here. When you bash target, restore health. Really good, you're going to be in melee anyway, so this can help you restore some health. Phase, another good one after roll dodging, increase armor and spell resistance. So you are going to be doing a lot of roll dodging in PvP, so another good one. And then reinforce the 120 point in this tree. After you block, you gain a shield. So essentially making your block a lot more powerful. So that's another good one in this tree. Moving on to the lady, I've got 20 points into Elemental Defender. This is kind of because I'm a vampire. It's going to reduce my flame damage. I do not run any kind of flame resist on my gear, so I make up for that by putting 20 points into gear. 10 points into Hardy. This is kind of similar to Elemental Defender, except it's for poison, disease, and magic damage. So I'm kind of covering all my magical different elements here by doing those two. And then Thick Skinned, this is going to reduce damage from damage over time effects. So fire, poison, disease, anything that has a dot, it's going to reduce that damage. You should be cleansing in PvP, so this isn't as important, but before you get that cleanse off, you might take a couple of ticks, so this is going to reduce that tick damage that you're going to be taking from those dots. So I did put some points into there for that. The lady, the 120 point buff here is really good. It's kind of what I'm going for in this tree. It reduces the stamina cost of abilities for 3 seconds after you break free. So in PvP, you're going to be doing a lot of break free, and to get this kind of buff so you can get some more spells off is, I think, really good. So this is a good one to kind of strive for on this tree. I don't have any points in the Lord. Moving on to the Thief section. In the tower, I've got Warlord. This is going to reduce stamina cost of spells. You might say, why don't I have more points into there? Because I actually have a lot of points into Mooncap, which is my stamina recovery, and then also Tumbling, which I do a lot in PvP. So, you know, as I get points, I'm starting to fill this one out, so eventually I'll get this one off too. In moving on to the Lover, you'll see I just mentioned I got a lot of points in stamina recovery. I also put some points into Magicka recovery, health recovery. I'm probably going to start putting more points into health recovery. You know, I don't really need a whole lot of Magicka recovery, but health recovery I do want to buff up, so I'll start putting points into there. Good, the 120 point in this one. Wind running is actually kind of nice. Increased movement speed by 2%. 2% doesn't seem like a lot, but you know, moving around faster, I think that's good. So it also increases health and Magicka regen by 10% while you're sprinting. So that's another nice little buff for this one. The Shadow, I've got, like I said, 20 points in Tumbling. I do a lot of roll dodging in PvP. Also, this is for break free too. So I put, you know, 20 points into there to buff that up. Kind of an interesting, you know, point here, the Shadow Strike. So after killing an enemy with heavy attack, you go into stealth. You know, that might be good. I you know, think this one might be good for PvP. Getting a heavy attack in, timing that right, might be kind of difficult, but getting being able to go into stealth, I think would be a cool thing to be able to do. Moving on to the Mage, Apprentice. I do have 10 points in the Blessed. That might be kind of strange to some of you, because it's gonna increase healing. I'm not really a healer, but I do have some points in here, so my heals that I do, because I do have Purify, I do have Rally, and then it's also going to buff my repentance as well. So those spells that do heal me, it's going to make them more effective. So having those be a little bit more effective and be able to heal myself up in PvP, I feel is important. So I did put 10 points into that. Atronach, I have bow and sword. Make my bow and sword a little bit better. I've got a couple points into there. Looking at the points up here, this one is kind of cool. When you block, it's going to return a lot of damage to the attacker. So I think that one, and that's only 30 points. So that's why I've started to put some points into here, because that one's kind of cool. And then the 120 point one here, set enemies off balance when you roll dodge their attack. Like I said, I roll dodge a lot in PvP, so this one might be kind of cool. Getting this tree. And then my last one here, the ritual. Obviously, I do physical damage, so I put 20 points into there. That's going to buff my physical damage. Piercing. Increase the amount of armor your physical attacks ignore, so that's going to get through armor around players, so that's important to have. And then increase my critical damage of my physical attacks, so that's also a good one to have here. This tree, you do want to put some points in this tree, get at least 30 points in here. Increase your weapon critical by 12%. That's a kind of important one to get in this tree. So that is my champion points. Like I said, you know, do what you want with this with your champion points. That's just what I've done, but you know, distribute the points to your playstyle. So here I am back with my PvE setup that I use when I'm running dungeons. This is for DPS. So what do I change on my PvP build to be able to DPS in dungeons? So first off, I don't really change any of my gear. The only set that I change, I do have the Valkyrie Scoria set here. For PvP, I run the Engine Guardian because I want the resources back to be able to sustain myself in PvP. For PvE side of this, I want more DPS. So when I go into skills, you'll see I do have a lot of dots, and that is what procs the meteor to fall in this set. This is a little bit harder set to get. The helm comes from Veteran City of Ash. A little bit harder dungeon. If you're not able to get this set, I was running this set here, Ceradel's Crest. You can get this from PvP, or you can also buy this on the auction house. So 2-piece of this is going to give you extra weapon damage, so that's also going to buff your damage. So this is another good option. Also, any set that gives you weapon damage for a 2 set is going to work here. So if you're able to pick up a different set that works, you know, by all means do that instead. So going into my skills. So on my PvE setup, my greatsword is my AoE bar. This is what I do when, you know, you're doing AoE. And then my bow bar is going to be my single target DPS build. So that's how I set up my 2 bars here. Going into the skills, bow, lethal arrow, does a lot of damage. It has a dot on it. Venom arrow, I have here, it also has a dot. It also interrupts spell casting, so good for interrupting those healers or casters that are doing damage. And then Power of the Light, this spell, you put it on the target, and then any damage you do to the target is going to be increased when this falls off. So basically these 3 spells here is my DPS rotation. So I put up Power of the Light. I make sure I keep Venom Arrow up, so I have that dot rolling. And then I'm going to spam lethal arrows. in between to get as much damage before this powered light falls off as I can. So in between these attacks, I'm going to be heavy attacking if I need stamina in between, or light attacking in between. So that's how I do damage to single target. And then also on this bar, the last 3 spells here are basically just going to buff Repentance, so I can get resources back, be able to heal the party. Evil Hunter, this gives you a critical, weapon critical. It also, if you're fighting Daedra, obviously you want to keep this buff up because it's going to give you extra damage. And then Flawless Dawnbreaker for the weapon damage. So that's my bow bar. Then going into my AoE for my greatsword, biting jabs, great AoE. It doesn't have a dot, but it does proc the Valkyrie Scoria helm, and I have tested it. I have been able to proc a meteor by just using the spell. So maybe because you're hitting the target multiple times, it's counting as a dot. But it does proc the meteor, so it does work. This also, it's going to give you weapon critical as well. So what I normally will do, I will use my critical rush to charge in, and then I hit this once on all the targets to get my critical up, and then just start spamming Brawler. So Brawler, also I mentioned in my PvP build, I do use it. It's got a great dot. It gives you a shield, which is great. And it does a good amount of damage, so good AoE spell to have. Rally, which I'm always going to have up when I'm running this build. It's going to give you a heal, it's going to give you weapon buff, it's going to give you a hot on yourself, so also a good skill to have. And then Blazing Shield, I use this. I don't use it as much when I'm AoEing. I'll if I run into a big group of mobs and I know that I'm going to be taking a lot of damage, then I definitely will put this on. But this is kind of my, if something's going to attack me, if I see something's going to attack me, I'll put this up so I can kind of survive. And then my ultimate here that I do use is Empowering Sweep. It does a lot of damage. It also reduces damage dealt to you by the amount of targets it hits. So it does make you survive a little bit better, and then it also has a dot as well on it. So it's also going to proc that meteor on the Valkyrie Scoria set. So that is what I switch up for when I'm running dungeons and PvE. So really easy switch up, so you can use this build in both PvP and PvE.